Hi folks, welcome once again to Mr. H's weekly recap where we give you a rundown of what's going on in room 1925. A couple procedural things before we get rolling here. This week is kind of our lead up to winter break, so we've posted on social media, I'm sure on the high school page and the district page, there are schedules as to what's going to be happening. So take a look at those, and obviously we'll be giving you a further update as we get a little bit closer to the end of next week. This week also some anniversaries to acknowledge. Yesterday, Thursday, was the 225th anniversary of the passage of the Bill of Rights. So we had a little bit of acknowledgments in class of that, and obviously we'll be kicking off our Bill of Rights unit here very soon. We also had our traditional holiday concert here at the high school, so we kind of had a funky schedule on Wednesday. But obviously a little bit of culture never hurt anyone. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in class. Let's start with the Gov and Econ guys. This week, we've been kind of wrapping up our third unit, which is our discussions of the federal government and state governments, federalism mostly. Most of our discussions this week have centered on the judiciary, kind of talking about the federal courts, state courts, military courts, and criticisms of the judiciary, and that's kind of where we're wrapping things up. Students also got the chance to work kind of exclusively this week on their student cam projects. If you watched my weekly recap from last week, Student Cam Project is a contest hosted by C-SPAN, and they encourage students to pick topics from under a prescribed theme. This year it is what would you like the new president and the new Congress to focus on in 2017? And students create video documentaries kind of revolving around an issue they feel is pertinent, as long as they incorporate some kind of C-SPAN content into that. Monday, Wednesday, and also Friday, students got time to work in class, and we'll have one more work day next week before they will be due on the 23rd, our final day before we leave for Christmas break. When we come back, we'll probably have a little bit of a, I guess you could say, film festival in class and kind of take a look at everybody's work. And if students want to move on to the national competition, we'll encourage them and kind of support them in doing that. As our preparation kind of for finishing the judiciary continues, students also worked on a Supreme Court memo where they vetted Supreme Court candidates, took a look at endorsements, makeup of the United States Senate, possibility of balancing the court, which is now missing one of its justices with the death of Anthony Scalia. Kind of a good exercise in looking at how Supreme Court justices are picked and vetted, and what kind of presidents have to go through in order to get their nominees on the bench. We also talked quite a bit this week about preparations for end of the semester, what the final exam will look like, test breakdown, and also wrapping up things like our in-class journal and also our current event log. So we encourage you, ask your students about that, take a look at those items, and we have plenty of time still for students to finish up what they need to finish up as we head towards the mad dash that is the couple weeks before finals. For the world history students, this week has mostly been kind of taking a look at the peer evaluations that students filled out for their second DBQ. We're hoping to get those essays back to folks, and we'll kind of go from there as far as what the next step will be. As far as content goes, most of what we've talked about this week is kind of the beginnings of the 20th century. We talked a little Otto von Bismarck, wrapping up a little bit of German unification. We talked the Russian Revolution, kind of getting into the 20th century, a little bit of a review of Joseph Stalin and what students maybe learned a little bit about him and some of his policies towards communist Russia during the early 20th century into the 1920s and 30s, what they might remember from their US 2 classes. And then kind of wrapping things up with talking about the rise of Imperial Japan, the Meiji Revolt, and sort of setting the stage for what students remember from their US 2 classes as well as Imperial Japan and sort of their desire for conquest and empire. When we come in next week, we'll be jumping over World War II a little bit and kind of getting into some of the post-war world and kind of beginning that mad dash that always happens at this time of the semester towards, again, finals. Also with the world guys, we gave out instructions for finals, kind of an end of semester checklist, and we'll be talking more and more about that checklist as the days and weeks go on. As we get into the final stretch here of the semester, please stay up to date as far as the social media feed. If you're signed up for Remind, definitely keep an eye on those reminders. And if you have any questions about grades, we'll be setting a deadline for makeup work here very, very soon. Please feel free to email, let me know, and we'll see you guys again next week.